How do you see this debate between those who say today constitution is in danger, Samvidhan khatre mein hai, and those who are saying the constitution is the sentinel of our democracy, we should celebrate our constitution?
Well, I don't think the Constitution has really ever been in danger except during that brief period during the emergency. But I mean, people may have nuanced differences about uh, uh, st- how institutions are performing their duty, whether they're performing their duty well or not, or at all, is possibly a subject matter of debate. But the Constitution, by and large, has stood the test of time. In fact, if you ask me, Rajdeep, its very existence, instills in people the idea of popular sovereignty. So the fact that you had the people of this country, right, once overturn or overthrow a government that subverted the constitution. And secondly, that we have periodic elections every time, which by and large are fair and free. I know there's the odd carping about EVMs, which is now buried, and then about the new SIR and all that. But by and large, I think the Constitution itself has given people a sense of their own power, and that for that very reason, I think it survived the test of time.
You're saying the constitution has given people a sense of their own power. Let me challenge you on that by saying there are those who believe the institutions of our democracy, under the guise of the constitution, have been captured by whoever is in power, and particularly by all-powerful governments like the one we have now. And these captured institutions, whether they are the Election Commission or an Enforcement Directorate, all of them become subservient to those in power, and that's where the Samvidhan is in danger. That's when people's rights are in danger. Do you agree or not?
Well, I don't know. If you're saying that the criticism is that that people who should be manning institutions more independently are in fact becoming more subservient, there may be an element of truth in that. There may be an element of truth in that. I suppose when you talk about subservience and capture and all that, you're really talking about the judiciary, right? You're really talking about the judiciary, because the judiciary is supposed to be the umpire between compliance and transgression of the Constitution.
Sir, Mr. Jethmalani, the judiciary is supposed to be the umpire and supposed to protect our fundamental rights. But I'll tell you, yesterday I interviewed Justice Gawai, former Chief Justice who just retired, and he said firmly that this country must be run on rule of law and not on rule of bulldozer. And then I asked him, why is it then that bulldozers are still allowed to be used to demolish houses without due process? And he said that's a question you should ask to those who are meant to implement the laws, effectively passing the buck onto governments and the executive, the elected representatives who are not doing their function in implementing the laws as laid down by the Constitution, the rights, and by the Supreme Court.
But look, first of all, let me tell you, this is a aspect, perhaps, of sometimes overzealous executive action. All right, that's an aspect, but that doesn't define the Constitution. The operation of the Constitution covers a much wider canvas in this whole country, right? And essentially, what it is really a charter. It is really a charter for responsible government, right? And if government cease to be responsible, the Constitution is premised on the principle that at the end of 5 years, right, if you are dissatisfied, then popular sovereignty at the polls has a right to, if there is constitutional overreach, to remove those who are guilty of that overreach.
Sir, but do we have a level playing field in what you call free and fair elections? Given the massive use of money power, the massive use or abuse of state power, the alleged misuse of agencies like the Enforcement Directorate, so you have a free and fair election and constitutional democracy in name, but is it free and fair in reality 76 years later?
I believe it's free and fair in reality. And look, there's no test. if somebody has an opinion, right, unsupported by any evidence, then one can't. There's no argument here. We are not. There cannot be a rational debate, right? It has been tried and tested, as I pointed out. First, EVMs were questioned, right? Now it's this vote chori business that's going on. But let me tell you, there's no evidence. There has never been any evidence put forward, right? I mean, file an election petition, give us instances of that. And I'm with you. I think that's a test of a democracy, a fair and free election. The litmus test is a fair and free election. But if you just carp about it all the time, right? You are actually doing a great disservice for the own democracy which you are a part of. You participate in elections and predetermined from the very outset.
Right.
You say this is a
So
rigged result, then don't participate.
Mr. Jethmalani, let me raise another contentious issue. Are minority rights protected? Ambedkar spoke of fraternity, equality, and liberty as the centerpiece of his constitutional vision. Do you believe that today minority rights in this country are adequately protected in our constitution? Or is the fault lies with those who implement them? Because Nani Palkhiwala, I come back to it, said it's not the constitution that has failed the people, but the elected representatives who have failed the constitution. Do you agree that on concepts like secularism, fraternity, minority rights, we have failed?
Rajdeep, he did say that, yeah, and to a large extent, yes. But Nani Palkhiwala was not talking at a time when Hindutva, right, was a predominant doctrine, right? So I don't know what he had in mind, but certainly I think he was talking more about curtailing of freedoms. He was a champion of individual liberty and so on and so forth. So I think his perspective came from there.
But sir, it's those individual liberties one fears that are still compromised. You're a lawyer, you know, a respected senior lawyer. How even the basic principle of bail not jail, as Krishna Iyer said it out, is getting reversed. Individual liberties are being compromised. People spend years in jail without a trial, without access to a fair trial. Don't you believe all of this undermines the Constitution? Let me put it even more directly. As a senior constitutional lawyer who's appeared for the government also at times, can you firmly today put your hand on your heart, sir, and say that the soul and spirit of the Constitution as drafted by Dr. Ambedkar is perfectly safe in today's India? Put your hand on your heart.
I can put my hand on my heart and say with conviction that all democracies and all constitutional democracies in general, right, have severe imperfections, right? But that it still means that while it's an imperfect form of government, it is still the best form of government. Rajdeep, can I just ask you a counter question? I don't like to do that normally. What is a better system of government than that which we have, right? And let me tell you, if there are men who fail that constitutional system in our country, there are equally more men who do it in other countries. Actually, if you ask me today, we are a much better functioning democracy than both the UK and the US.
You're saying that we are a better democracy, constitutional democracy than the US and the UK. It's a big claim you're making. You're claiming Indian democracy is more effective than in the United Kingdom and the US. Right?
Yes, because let me tell you something. There are two things that are happening overseas, right? One is there is tampering with the judiciary to a bigger scale than here, right? Actually, the system permits it because any party in power actually has the advantage of fixing the final court, right, with their own nominees. That is U.S. Supreme Court, right? So that's one aspect. The second aspect is, right, that we have a more robust electoral system than anybody else.
So, Mr. Jethmalani, we may have a more robust electoral system, but I would contend we don't have enough checks and balances within that system. Whether it's the nature of our policing, whether it's the nature of our judiciary at different levels, which is accused, incidentally, of having got compromised, not independent enough, whether it is the fact that the executive has become more dictatorial and authoritarian, whether it's the legislature, which many believe is reduced to a notice board, whether it's the media, which is seen by many to have been captured. Mr. Jethmalani, you tell me, where is the real pushback in our system? Where are the checks and balances that are there in the United States or possibly even in the United Kingdom?
What great checks and balances have you had in the United Kingdom? I mean, there you have in the United States, you've had a president, ex-president, who has pardoned both himself and his entire family. That's never happened. That kind of self-interest, a self-interested nepotism has never taken place in this country. So the judiciary there has been a party to it. They've not. Till today, I don't know whether you can sanction, whether the U.S. Judiciary can go into
Right.
the question of pardoning, right? But it certainly hasn't done anything to stop this very, very blatant abuse, the most blatant abuse.
So what you're saying, Mr. Jethmalani, we have a first-rate constitution. You believe that the dangers are exaggerated, but at the same time, you do accept that we need to see stronger institutions that are more robust. Am I broadly correct?
Yes, substantially more robust. Let me add an adjective and say that yes, I go to that extent that we are still a far cry from being at least a pretty good democracy, right?
Okay.
We are among the top few democracies in the world today, right?
Okay.
And I pride myself. I pride India.
Okay.
I take pride in the fact that I'm an Indian. And right, I can criticize people sometimes. Of course, you're right that the police will come down at the behest of some politician and crack down on you. But those are instances, by and large, which country do you have a leader which can incessantly going on saying things like "chaukidar chor hai," vote chori? I mean, you've not only put unproven charges or unsubstantiated charges against a top leader of this country, but you failed to come with evidence against a systemic. What you allege is a systemic
So,
abuse.
so, so let me ask you in conclusion very quickly. Do you really believe there's enough space in Indian democracy for true dissent?
Yes, I think there's enough space for dissent, but dissenters will always feel, right, until they come to power, that the system is not perfect.